About 2 years ago, I was driving home from a family reunion late at night. The trip was supposed to take a little over 2 hours, and although several relatives had offered me a place to stay, I decided to make the drive because I had work the next morning and needed to be back early. At first, the drive was uneventful, the roads were quiet, and traffic was light. Most of the route took me through long stretches of countryside where dense trees and thick bushes lined both sides of the road. It was the kind of road that seemed endless at night. Every few minutes another vehicle would pass in the opposite direction, but otherwise there was very little activity. About 45 minutes into the drive, fatigue hit me hard. It wasn't the gradual kind of tiredness that builds over hours. It felt like a switch had been flipped. One moment I was fine, and the next I was struggling to keep my eyes focused on the road. I rolled down the window, turned up the radio, and tried every trick I knew to stay alert, but nothing seemed to help. The problem was that there weren't many places to stop. I kept hoping I would come across a gas station, a rest area, or even a parking lot where I could safely pull over and get some sleep, but mile after mile passed without anything suitable appearing. Eventually I accepted that continuing to drive wasn't a good idea. I was becoming too tired to trust myself behind the wheel. Not wanting to stop in plain sight, I pulled off the road onto a patch of grass hidden behind some bushes. The spot wasn't ideal, but it was far enough from the road that passing drivers probably wouldn't notice my vehicle. I checked the time before shutting off the engine. It was exactly 11:22 p.m. My plan was simple: get some sleep, wake up feeling refreshed, and finish the drive home. I fell asleep almost immediately. The first time I woke up, I wasn't even sure why. For a moment I just sat there trying to figure out what had interrupted me. Then I heard it again, a faint scratching sound coming from somewhere outside the vehicle.
What was that?
It lasted only a few seconds before stopping completely. Still half asleep, I looked at the clock. It was 11:50 p.m. I listened for a moment, heard nothing else, and convinced myself it was probably an animal brushing against the car. Since I was still exhausted, I leaned back and went right back to sleep. The second time was different. I woke up suddenly to the exact same scratching noise, except this time it didn't stop. It continued for several seconds, paused briefly, and then started again. I looked at the clock. It was now 12:40 a.m. What bothered me wasn't the sound itself but the timing. If it had been an animal investigating the vehicle, why would it come back nearly an hour later? The thought immediately put me on edge. I stayed perfectly still and listened. The scratching continued somewhere outside, moving slightly as if whatever was making the noise was circling the vehicle. My first instinct was to look around, but I didn't want to attract attention if someone was actually outside. Instead, I slowly checked the mirrors. For a second, I didn't see anything. Then, in the rearview mirror, I caught a brief glimpse of movement. Something, or someone, was running away from the vehicle and disappearing into the darkness beyond the trees. That was enough for me. At the time, every scary story I'd ever heard immediately started running through my head. Rational or not, I didn't want to stick around long enough to find out what had been outside my car. I started the engine, put the car into gear, and pulled back onto the road. Within seconds I was driving away from the area. The road curved sharply about 100 yards ahead. As I came around the bend, my headlights illuminated another vehicle parked on the side of the road. The sight immediately caught my attention. The driver's side door was wide open. I slowed down slightly as I passed. The interior light was on, making it easy to see inside, and from what I could tell, there was nobody in the driver's seat and nobody standing nearby. It looked completely abandoned. For a moment I wondered if the vehicle had broken down. Then I glanced into my rearview mirror. At first I didn't notice anything unusual. Then a man suddenly appeared around the corner behind me. He wasn't walking, he was sprinting. The man was running directly toward my vehicle as fast as he could. Even through the closed windows, I could hear him yelling. His arms were waving wildly as he chased after me. The words became clearer as the distance closed. "Hey! Hey you!" Then he started shouting even louder, "Get out of your car now!" I remember staring at him through the mirror, trying to process what was happening, but nothing about the situation felt right. There was an empty vehicle parked on the roadside with the door hanging open. A man had apparently been somewhere in the woods moments earlier. Now he was running toward me in the middle of the night, demanding that I stop and get out of my car. I didn't spend much time thinking about it. I pressed the accelerator and kept driving. The man continued shouting for a few seconds before disappearing behind the curve. I never stopped, never turned around, and never saw him again. The rest of the drive home passed without incident, but I spent most of it wondering what exactly had happened back there. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation, maybe the men genuinely needed help, or maybe the scratching sounds, the hidden figure near my vehicle, and the abandoned car on the roadside were all connected. To this day, I still don't know what happened, but what I do know is that falling asleep alone on the side of a dark road was one of the worst decisions I've ever made. Looking back, I should have kept driving until I found a gas station, a rest stop, or somewhere with other people around. Whatever was happening out there that night, I was lucky enough not to stay long enough to find out.